Welcome to the channel of the mysterious and unknown. I'm your host, and today, I'm bringing you a story like no other. It's the tale of the Whispering Shadow, a mysterious figure shrouded in mystery and darkness. This story takes us to a small town on the city's fringes, where something strange is happening. People report hearing whispers from the shadows, and no one knows who or what is causing it. Could it be a supernatural force, a human being, or something else entirely? The townspeople are terrified, and no one knows what to do. But one brave soul has decided to take on this mystery and seek the truth. Will they succeed in their quest or fail? Follow us as we explore this story and uncover the secrets of the Whispering Shadow. Remember to turn on subtitles for a better experience. In the small town of Ravenswood, a legend had been whispered for generations. It was a story of a shadowy figure that haunted the nearby forest. No one knew where it came from or what it wanted, but everyone knew to fear the Whispering Shadow. The legend went that the shadow only appeared at night, creeping through the trees and whispering secrets only the bravest could hear. Some claimed it was a vengeful spirit seeking revenge on those who had wronged it. Others said it was a creature from another world, come to observe and study humanity. Despite the stories, most people in Ravenswood paid little attention to the legend. It was just a spooky tale that parents told their children to keep them from wandering into the forest at night. But the legend intrigued one man, a traveler named James. He was an adventurer at heart, always looking for a new challenge, and the Whispering Shadow seemed like the ultimate mystery to solve. James set out into the forest one night, determined to find the Whispering Shadow. He brought with him a lantern and a revolver, just in case. As he walked deeper into the woods, he heard soft and indistinct whispers like the wind rustling through the leaves. The whispers grew louder and more distinct, and James realized they were coming from around him. He strained to hear what they were saying, but the words were jumbled and nonsensical. Suddenly, James saw movement out of the corner of his eye. He turned quickly, but there was nothing there. He heard a soft chuckle, and then the whispers started louder than ever before. James pressed on, determined to find the source of the whispers. He came to a clearing in the forest and saw a figure standing in the center. It was the Whispering Shadow, its features hidden in the darkness. "Who are you?" James called out, his voice echoing through the clearing. The shadow didn't respond, but the whispers grew louder and more insistent. "What do you want?" James demanded. Still, the shadow remained silent. James stepped forward, and the shadow disappeared, melting into the darkness. James searched the clearing, but there was no sign of the shadow. He was about to give up when he heard a soft voice behind him. "You seek the truth, traveler?" James turned and saw an old woman standing behind him. She was dressed in rags, and her hair was wild and unkempt. "Yes," James said. "I seek the truth about the Whispering Shadow." The old woman nodded, a smile spreading across her wrinkled face. "You are brave, traveler," she said. "Few have dared to seek the truth about the shadow. What can you tell me?" James asked eagerly. The old woman beckoned him closer and whispered in his ear. "The Whispering Shadow is not what it seems," she said. "It is not a vengeful spirit or a creature from another world. It is something far more dangerous." "What is it?" James asked. The old woman shook her head. "I cannot say," she said. "But be warned, traveler. If you continue to seek the truth, the shadow will find you." The older woman disappeared into the darkness, leaving James alone in the clearing. As James returned to town, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. He heard whispers in his ear and saw movement out of the corner of his eye. But when he turned, there was nothing there. Days turned into weeks, and James became obsessed with finding the truth about the Whispering Shadow. He talked to everyone he could find who had heard the legend. Some people told James they had seen the shadow themselves, while others warned him to stay away from the forest at night. But no one could give him concrete answers about the shadow. James continued to explore the forest every night, hoping to catch a glimpse of the shadow again. He heard whispers and saw movement but could never get close enough to see the shadow. One night, James was walking through the forest when he heard a loud rustling in the bushes. He drew his revolver and aimed it at the source of the noise. Suddenly, the whispering shadow stepped out of the bushes. James froze, his finger poised on the trigger. The shadow didn't move, but its eyes seemed to glow in the darkness. "Who are you?" James asked, his voice shaking. The shadow didn't answer, but James could hear whispers coming from its direction. They were more evident than ever, and James strained to make out what they were saying. Suddenly, the whispers stopped, and the shadow disappeared into the darkness. James was more determined than ever to uncover the truth about the whispering shadow. He spent every night in the forest, searching for clues. One night, as he walked through the forest, he saw a faint light in the distance. He walked towards it and came upon an old cabin. The door was slightly ajar, and James pushed it open. Inside, he found an old book on a table. It was filled with strange symbols and diagrams, and James realized it was a magic book. He flipped through the pages and found a section on summoning spirits from other worlds. The instructions were complex and dangerous, but James was desperate for answers. He spent the next few nights preparing the ritual, gathering the necessary materials, and practicing the magic. On the night of the full moon, he was ready. He lit candles around the cabin and began to chant the incantation. The air grew cold, and James could feel a presence in the room with him. Suddenly, the whispering shadow appeared in front of him. Its eyes were glowing, and its whispers were louder than ever before. James asked the shadow what it wanted, but it didn't answer. Instead, it began to chant in a strange language, and the candles flickered out. James was surrounded by darkness and felt a cold hand on his shoulder. He tried to move, but he was frozen in place. The whispers grew louder, and James realized they came from inside his head. They were telling him secrets that he had never known before. As the whispers died down, James felt a release. He could move again and saw the shadow disappearing into the darkness. He stumbled out of the cabin and back into the forest, still reeling from experience. He didn't know what the whispering shadow was or what it wanted, but he knew it was beyond human understanding. From that night on, James never went back into the forest. He knew the whispering shadow was still out there, watching and waiting for its next victim. But he had uncovered the truth, and that was enough. Months passed, and James tried to put the strange encounter with the whispering shadow behind him. He buried himself in his work, determined to forget the mysterious entity and move on with his life. But he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. One night, as he left his office late, James heard whispers from the shadows. He turned around and saw the faint outline of the whispering shadow in the distance. James ran as fast as he could, but the shadow seemed to follow him. He could hear its whispers growing louder and louder until they were almost deafening. He made it home and locked the doors behind him, but the whispers continued. James couldn't sleep that night and knew he had to face the whispering shadow once and for all. The next day, he went to the library and began researching everything about spirits and the supernatural. He read books on exorcism, magic, and ancient rituals. Finally, he found a book that described a ritual that could banish spirits from this world. It was risky, but James was desperate. He gathered the necessary ingredients and waited until nightfall to begin the ritual. As he began to chant the incantation, the whispering shadow appeared before him. James didn't flinch.